Welcome to True Echo, where real strength whispers, and quiet power echoes louder than betrayal. Today's story will leave you questioning everything you think you know about love, loyalty, and what happens when a mother's silent sacrifice meets her adopted son's ruthless ambition. What he didn't know. She had a secret. And when the truth came out, it changed everything. Evelyn Carter had always believed in second chances. In quiet grace. In folding towels just right and putting love into every casserole dish, every packed lunch, every whispered prayer for a child who wasn't born from her, but was loved as fiercely as if he had been. So on that Thursday afternoon, when the key didn't turn in the lock, when the doorknob stayed cold beneath her hand, she didn't panic. Not at first. She tried again, slower this time, whispering to herself, "Come on now," as if gentleness would change the metal's mind. But the truth was already sitting heavy in her chest. The lock had been changed. The doormat still said, "Welcome," but the house no longer belonged to her. The door opened just a crack. Natalie's face peered out, impeccably made up, but her expression flickered with guilt. "Oh, hey," she said like they were running into each other at the grocery store. "You weren't supposed to be back until later." Evelyn blinked, clutching her grocery bag tighter. "Why can't I get in the house?" Natalie hesitated, glanced over her shoulder, then stepped outside and closed the door behind her like she was sealing something inside. "I think Ryan was going to talk to you about that." "Talk to me about what?" "You don't live here anymore." The words didn't land. Not right away. Evelyn stood there, blinking, as if Natalie had spoken in a different language. "What did you just say?" Natalie gave a nervous little laugh, like she didn't quite believe it herself. "It's just paperwork stuff. Ryan said you agreed to transfer the deed, remember? All those documents at the kitchen table." A cold wave hit Evelyn's spine. The folder. The pen. The highlighted lines. Ryan brushing it off, just to clean up the paperwork, Ma. She thought it was just to avoid probate. She thought he was helping. Now she stood on her own porch, no longer her porch, with groceries digging into her arm and the soft blue cardigan she always wore on laundry day wrapped around her like a shield. Natalie disappeared back inside. The door locked again. Evelyn didn't knock a second time. She walked down the steps slowly, heart racing, pride crumbling. She didn't know where she was going. But she knew she couldn't go back inside. Evelyn didn't cry. Not even when the rotisserie chicken, still warm an hour ago, rolled to the floor of the passenger seat and smeared grease on her vinyl car mat. She simply stared at the dashboard, hands still gripping the wheel, parked under a flickering street lamp 2 blocks from the house that no longer belonged to her. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the insult. The carelessness. The way Natalie had said, "You don't live here anymore," like Evelyn was a tenant overstaying a lease. And Ryan? Her Ryan. The little boy she once stayed up with all night during a week-long asthma flare-up. He had sold her trust for a deed and a dream of a high-rise life that didn't include her. But there was something Ryan didn't know. 3 years ago, after Leonard, her husband, her anchor, passed from a hospital's careless mistake, Evelyn didn't take it lying down. She'd worked too many double shifts as a nurse to let medical negligence go unchecked. She took the hospital to court, quietly. No press, no shouting. Just one determined woman and a stubborn attorney. After 2 years, the court ruled in her favor, $9.5 million in a malpractice settlement. She didn't tell a soul. Not Ryan. Not her church friends. Not even her sister in Baton Rouge. Instead, she moved the money into 5 separate accounts under her maiden name. It wasn't secrecy, it was strategy. Evelyn had always believed that the loudest people in the room had the least to offer. That money wasn't power unless it was handled with care. She had raised Ryan with love. Not luxury. And she had hoped, prayed, that he had inherited her humility. But now, watching her own son weaponize legal documents against her, she realized, he hadn't just betrayed her. He had underestimated her. By morning, Evelyn was at the bank. Her breath fogged the glass doors as she walked in. The teller, a young woman with kind eyes, offered her a smile. "Good morning, Miss Carter." Evelyn smiled back. "Morning, baby. I just need to check on a few things." 10 minutes later, she walked out knowing one thing for sure: Ryan had taken the house, but he hadn't touched her fortune. He couldn't. He didn't even know it existed. And now, Evelyn had a choice. Not just about what to do next, but about who she was going to be in the face of such gut-deep betrayal. Would she crawl back? Plead? Beg to stay in the life she built? Or would she rise? At a rundown motel near the interstate, she paid in cash for 2 nights. No questions. Just keys and silence. Inside her room, she opened the notebook she always kept in her purse, a ragged little thing filled with scribbles, Bible verses, to-do lists, and notes to herself. On the last page, written in her own hand from months ago, was a single line. "Don't let money make you loud. Let it make you quiet. Let it buy you time." She closed the notebook, leaned back in the creaky motel chair, and whispered aloud. "All right, Ryan. Let's see what you really know." The next morning, Evelyn pulled into a parking lot outside a diner that had barely changed since the 70s, checkered linoleum floors, chipped coffee mugs, and a waitress who called everyone honey without missing a beat. She chose a booth by the window and waited. She didn't have to wait long. Clarence C.J. Bell slid into the seat across from her, a man who looked like life had softened him but not dulled him. White had crept into his beard, and his gait was slower now, but his mind still sharp enough to cut steel. Leonard's oldest friend. A man Evelyn hadn't called in years. "You look like hell," he said, his voice gravel and warmth. Evelyn gave a tired chuckle. "Good morning to you too, CJ. He waved off the waitress when she came to take his order, then looked back at Evelyn, folding his weathered hands on the table. "Start talking. Don't sugar it. Just lay it down." And so, she did. Every detail. The documents Ryan brought her under the guise of just-in-case paperwork. The false promises, the reassurances. The lock on the door. Natalie's smug little smile. Evelyn laid it out like a quilt, stitched in betrayal, backed with heartbreak. CJ didn't interrupt once. When she finished, he let out a low whistle and shook his head. "He tricked you," he said slowly. "Played you like a fiddle. But he made one critical mistake." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" He forgot who raised him. She looked away, her throat thick. "I signed, CJ. I signed everything. That's the part that gets me. I trusted him. You signed under false pretenses. That matters. If he lied to get you to sign, it could be void. Especially if he misrepresented what the documents were. And if he's been making plans to sell or profit off the home without telling you. That's grounds to investigate." She let out a deep sigh. "You think we could take it to court?" CJ didn't hesitate. "Evelyn, I could take him to court in my sleep." But Evelyn's eyes drifted to the window. Her reflection caught her, older, more tired than she remembered. "I don't want to destroy him," she said softly. "I just want my home. I want to be able to sleep at night knowing I wasn't a fool." CJ's voice dropped. "Then we won't destroy him. We'll educate him." They spent 2 hours mapping out the next steps. Evelyn's notebook became the battlefield, pages full of dates, names, conversations. She'd always been meticulous. It came from years as a nurse. Document everything. Every symptom. Every change. She had already done half the legal work without knowing it. As CJ outlined their legal route, petition to investigate the transaction, fraud inquiry, potential reversal, Evelyn hesitated. Then she said something she hadn't said to anyone. "I've got money, CJ. Not just a little. A lot. After Leonard died. The hospital settlement." He frowned. "A few thousand. Try 9.5 million. His coffee cup hit the table harder than she expected. "Jesus. I never touched it. Never told Ryan. Didn't want him knowing. Didn't want anyone knowing, really." CJ stared at her. "You've been sitting on $9 million and letting this boy gaslight you out of your home?" Evelyn shrugged. "I didn't want money to change how I loved him." CJ didn't laugh. He didn't call her a fool. He just nodded slowly. "It didn't. He changed himself." She smiled sadly. "I want to do this right, CJ. I don't want cameras or chaos. I just want to look at my front door and see my name on the deed again. Nothing more." CJ reached across the table and took her hand. "Then that's what we're going to do. One paper at a time." But Evelyn knew she had one last thing to do before the courts got involved. One conversation. One reckoning. She had to look Ryan in the eye, not as his victim, not as the woman he swindled, but as the mother he thought he could erase. Evelyn didn't call ahead. She knew if she did, Ryan would find a way to avoid her, maybe send Natalie to the door again, or worse, have a new excuse waiting. No. This had to be done face to face. It was late afternoon when she pulled into the driveway of what used to be her home. The hedges were trimmed too neatly, like they were trying to impress someone, not love something. Her begonias, once blooming pink and coral, were gone. Replaced by concrete planters with sterile succulents. The house looked clean, sharp, hollow. She knocked once. Ryan opened the door, wearing gym shorts and a hoodie, a protein shake in one hand. His smile faded the second he saw her. "Ma," he caught himself. "Evelyn. What are you doing here?" "I don't need much of your time," she said calmly. "Just a few words." He stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door behind him, more curious than nervous. "If this is about the house, look, I told Natalie." She raised a hand. "Let me finish." He closed his mouth, shifting his weight. "I raised you when nobody else would," she began. Her voice didn't tremble. "Not because I wanted a thank you. Not even because I needed a child. I did it because I saw a little boy who didn't have anyone. And I gave you everything I had. My time. My money. My body when I was sick. My nights when you cried. My hands when you couldn't breathe." Ryan looked away, jaw tight. "I taught you how to tie a tie. How to braid hair. How to say thank you. But I never taught you how to betray someone. That you learned on your own." He rubbed the back of his neck. "You signed the papers, Ma. I didn't force you. Don't call me Ma if you don't mean it." Silence stretched between them like wire. Tense. Dangerous. "I'm not here to argue," she said. "Just to tell you, I know what you did. And you should know. I'm not broke. Never was. I've got more money than you could imagine. Enough to buy this house 10 times over." Ryan blinked. "Wait, what? You weren't supposed to know. Because love isn't a business deal. But you made it one. And now, I'm letting you know the rules have changed." He took a breath, mouth slightly open like he was trying to find words that wouldn't come. "You're gonna sue me?" "No," she said, straightening her spine. "I'm going to remind you what a real home costs. And then I'm going to take mine back." And with that, she turned and walked back to her car, no yelling, no door slamming, no drama. Just calm, measured purpose. That night, Evelyn received a call from CJ. "They've filed the petition," he said. Judge took one look at the case and fast-tracked it. He wants to see all documentation. We're moving. She didn't celebrate. Not yet. Not until justice felt like restoration, not revenge. Ryan didn't answer any of the court notices. Natalie moved out a week later. Rumor had it she left for Dallas. The house stayed on the market, but never sold. The weight of guilt clung to the walls like mildew. And 3 months later, it was over. The judge ruled the transfer invalid. Evelyn had been misled, documents presented under false pretenses. The house was stripped from Ryan's name. His whereabouts? Unknown. But Evelyn didn't move back in. She had a new idea. Something bigger than bricks and beams. The keys to her old house were handed back without ceremony, just a quiet envelope from the court and a signature from the new owner, a retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Laverne Deeds. Evelyn met her once, outside on the porch, the one Evelyn had scrubbed by hand for over 2 decades. They shook hands, and Evelyn said, simply, "Take good care of it." Mrs. Deeds had nodded. "I will. This place, it feels like it remembers something." "It does," Evelyn replied. "It remembers everything." But Evelyn didn't step back inside. Not even to say goodbye. Too many ghosts. Instead, she did something Ryan never would have predicted. With CJ's help, she set up a trust and purchased 3 modest properties in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Not fancy ones, just homes with bones strong enough to carry the weight of women who'd been discarded, just like she had. She called it Len's Place. After Leonard. Because if anyone had taught her that stability meant more than luxury, it was him. The first woman she welcomed was Alma, 74, evicted by her grandson after she refused to babysit his 2 toddlers full-time. The second was Darlene, 67, who had broken her hip and returned from rehab to find her daughter had quietly sold the house while she was gone. These women didn't cry much anymore. Not the wet kind. Their tears were in their sighs, their backs, the way they moved slowly but looked you straight in the eye. Evelyn knew that kind of heartbreak. The quiet, clean kind. And so every Sunday, she made cornbread. Sometimes greens. Sometimes peach cobbler if the peaches were good that week. They didn't talk about their families unless they wanted to. There were no intake interviews. Just warmth, food, and respect. One evening, while folding linens on the back porch, Darlene asked her, "You don't ever think about going back to him?" Evelyn looked out at the trees, their branches gently swaying like they were nodding to something invisible. "I think about the boy I raised. Not the man he became." Hardest part, Alma added from her rocking chair, is realizing you can love someone with everything you have, and still have to walk away. Evelyn nodded. That's the part they don't warn you about. But Evelyn wasn't bitter. Not anymore. She had a mission now. And purpose has a way of softening even the deepest wounds. She still kept her notebook, the one with the court notes and scripture verses. She'd added new pages now, budgets for groceries, names of elder law advocates, lists of senior women in need. She was building something, not out of spite, but out of survival. And more than that, out of rebirth. A year had passed. Evelyn sat on the back porch of Len's place, wrapped in a fleece blanket, a mug of chamomile tea warming her hands. The Mississippi sky glowed orange and gold, the kind of slow-burning sunset that didn't rush anything. Alma was upstairs, humming gospel and crocheting. Darlene was in the kitchen, chopping collards like she owned the rhythm of the knife. Peace had returned to Evelyn, but not in the way she thought it would. It hadn't come from winning the court case. It hadn't come from Ryan disappearing. It had come from rebuilding. From giving to women like her, ones who had been told, directly or silently, "You don't belong here anymore." Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Most calls these days were from lawyers or local churches referring women who needed shelter. She helped when she could. Quietly. Anonymously. Just how she liked it. Then the mail came. Among the utility bills and catalogs was one plain envelope. No return address. Just her name, handwritten in a style that twisted her stomach with recognition. Ryan. She opened it slowly. Inside, a short note. I messed up. I see that now. I don't know why I did it the way I did. Maybe I thought I was owed something. Maybe I never understood what you gave me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say it. You didn't deserve what I did. I hope you're okay. Ryan. Evelyn read it twice. Folded it neatly. Tucked it in the back of her Bible. Not to forget. But because some memories were better honored than reopened. She didn't write back. She didn't need to. Forgiveness, she had learned, wasn't about releasing him. It was about releasing herself, from anger, from grief, from the temptation to wear betrayal like a second skin. You can love someone fiercely. Sacrificially. Even completely. And still lose them. Not because of who you are, but because of who they choose to be. And that's not your burden to carry. The screen door creaked. Alma stepped out, a finished crocheted scarf in her hand. Cold front's coming in tomorrow, she said. You want the first one? Evelyn smiled. Nah. Give it to Darlene. Her hips acting up again. Alma nodded, sat beside her. You ever wonder what he's doing now? No, Evelyn said honestly. I used to. But not anymore. She took a long sip of her tea, the warmth spreading through her bones. Because I'm not the one who's lost anymore. Spring came to Pascagoula with a gentle kind of grace, early blossoms, porch breezes, and sunrises that made Evelyn feel like she was being spoken to. On Sunday mornings, she'd sit outside with her Bible open and a tray of muffins cooling behind her. Alma and Darlene often joined her after church, still dressed in soft pastels and worn leather shoes, trading stories between sips of lemonade. Len's place had grown, not just in size, but in spirit. With the help of CJ and a quiet donation Evelyn funneled through a non-profit, they'd acquired a fourth home. The rooms were always full. The women always kind. And Evelyn had never felt more needed. But more than that, she had never felt more whole. One afternoon, while reviewing paperwork at the community center downtown, CJ walked in with a grin stretched across his face. Got a call this morning, he said, setting a folder on the table. City wants to honor Len's place at the Civic Awards banquet. Evelyn laughed. Oh, Lord. I'm not putting on a dress and standing on a stage. You won't have to. They're sending someone here. Local TV. Just a few words from you. About the work. The vision. The why. Her smile faded slightly. The why. People always asked for it. And she never knew how to answer without telling the whole story. About Ryan. About the betrayal. About that one Thursday afternoon when her hands shook holding a grocery bag and a cold rotisserie chicken. But Evelyn had stopped defining herself by what had been taken. Now, she defined herself by what she gave. And maybe, she thought, it was time others saw what real power looked like, not the kind that screams or sues or fights with fists, but the kind that rebuilds from the ground up, again and again. The day the news crew came, Evelyn wore a navy dress and pinned a brooch to her chest, a gift from Leonard on their 5th anniversary. She stood on the porch of the second Len's Place home, with 3 women on the swing behind her laughing softly over peach tea. The reporter asked, "Why did you start this?" Evelyn paused, looked at the camera, and said with steady eyes. Because too many people throw women away when they stop being convenient. And I was one of them once. Until I remembered, peace isn't something you wait for. You build it. From scratch, if you have to. The reporter nodded, clearly caught off guard. And what would you say to anyone watching who's been through what you've been through? Evelyn smiled gently. Not bitter. Not broken. Just sure. I'd say, don't let betrayal define you. Let it refine you. Don't get loud. Get smart. And when they underestimate you, make sure they remember that mistake for the rest of their lives. The segment aired 2 weeks later. CJ joked about getting her a manager. The local mayor wrote her a handwritten thank you note. But Evelyn didn't do it for recognition. She did it because somewhere out there, another woman was standing on her own front porch, groceries in hand, realizing the key didn't fit anymore. And Evelyn wanted that woman to know. You haven't lost. You've just been released. Evelyn's story is more than a tale of betrayal, it's a blueprint for rebirth. When trust is broken and the world pushes you out, you can either collapse, or rebuild. Her power didn't come from her wealth. It came from remembering who she truly was. Let this story remind you. Real love can't be stolen. Real mothers don't fold. And real power doesn't scream, it builds again. If Evelyn's journey moved you, share this video with someone who needs strength today. Subscribe for more true echoes of resilience, and tell us in the comments. What would you rebuild if nothing stood in your way?